HowExpert! Top 10 fun facts about bookbinding. HowExpert publishes quick how-to guides on all topics from A to Z by everyday experts. Visit howexpert.com to learn more. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more HowExpert Top 10 videos in the future. Moving on, let's talk about the HowExpert Top 10 fun facts about bookbinding. Number 10. Bookbinding is probably older than you think. When we think of ancient texts, we often imagine large scrolls rolled up or images carved on stone. However, the oldest bound books date back to ancient India, around the year 100 AD CE. These books were bound by hand. They were made by copying texts, typically on a religious topic, onto palm leaves. These leaves were split in the middle, dried, and rubbed with the ink. Then they were sewn together with twine. The different pages of these palm leaf books were even numbered. Because they were printed on palm leaves, the pages are a bit smaller and longer than the typical book today. Number 9. As paper and parchment became more available throughout the world, they also became more common materials for books. These books were sewn together by hand. To hand sew a book, different pieces of paper are folded and stacked together. An awl is then used to pierce holes in the folds of the paper. Next, a piece of twine or string is used to sew this group of papers together, using the holes created by the awl. This is known as a folio. This process can be repeated to create longer books. Also, there are several different sewing styles, some more decorative than others, that can be used to bind pages together. Number 8. China was the first civilization to produce paper. With the increased trade that came with the Silk Road, paper became a popular item from China. The Chinese were also the first to learn how to create an early method for printing. They were the first to use block printing on paper in the 9th century. In this method, characters are carved into pieces of wood. These characters are then arranged to create text for the piece of paper. The characters are inked and the paper is placed on these wood blocks. This method allows for multiple copies of a page to be made, and the wood blocks can be used again to create new text. Number 7. Bookbinding began to be a form of art in the 12th century with the popularity of illuminated manuscripts. Illuminated manuscripts were typically used for religious texts like the Bible. To create an illuminated manuscript, monks were often tasked with hand copying pages of text and adding decorative lettering. Pictures illustrating the stories in the text often accompanied this lettering. These pages were then sewn together and given a hard cover made of leather. It was also common for these pages and the edges of the pages to be decorated with precious metals like gold and silver. Surviving examples of these works can be seen in numerous art museums. Number 6. Bookbinding became much quicker and accessible to the common people with the invention of the printing press in Germany in 1440. The printing press was invented by Johannes Gutenberg. He modeled the press on similar machines used for screw presses. A series of movable types were made out of metal and were inked to transfer words onto paper. The printing press allowed for up to 3,600 pages to be printed in a day, the equivalent to several books. This was a massive increase, as the earlier methods of hand printing produced about 40 pages a day, and hand copying produced only a few pages a day. Number 5. The first book printed using Gutenberg's invention was a Bible written in Latin and known as the Gutenberg Bible today. This is a fitting title for the first printing press, as the Bible is considered to be the book with the most copies sold even today. The Gutenberg Bible was printed on both linen paper and animal skin and bound in thick leather. While it is not known how many copies of the Gutenberg Bible were originally printed, the book is extremely rare today, with only 22 known copies. A single page from a Gutenberg Bible is estimated to be worth about $10,000. Number 4. Hardcover, usually made from leather or cloth, was the default method of printing for most of the history of binding books. The process of creating a hardcover book is very similar to that of hand sewing a book. To create a hardcover book, the basic process for hand sewing a book is followed, and several folios are created to complete the text of a book. These folios are then glued to a piece of binding, which becomes part of the spine of the book. Finally, this piece is glued to the hardcover material. If you examine some hardcover books produced today, you can often see some of the glue that holds the folio and cover together. Number 3. While hardcover books have been around for centuries, the paperback book is a relatively new invention. The first paperback books were printed in 1935 and were comprised of the first 10 Penguin books. The purpose of paperback books was to share quality literature at a reduced cost. These books with bright orange covers included titles by Ernest Hemingway, A Farewell to Arms, and Agatha Christie, The Mysterious Affair at Styles. The books were sold for 6 pence each, or about $10. The process of binding a paperback book is basically the same as a hardcover, but with a flexible cover. The spine is visible and often made out of thick paper to act as the cover. Number 2. As machines have become capable of completing much of the bookbinding process, some people have continued to bind books by hand, turning it into its own art form. These artists create decorative books in several ways. 1. The cover is embossed with different designs. 2. The pages are cut into different patterns and shapes. Some books even open up to create a scene from the book. 3. Sewing the folios together with complicated methods, making their own designs. In addition, these books may be unusually small or large. They can also open up like a box or contain multiple pop-ups from the pages. Number 1. With the increase of electronic books, some people believed that traditional bookbinding would be dead. Yet, this has not been the case, and bookbinding continues to thrive for hardcover and paperback books. In 2019 alone, about 689,450,000 books were printed and sold in the United States alone. While this amount was slightly down from the previous year, it still indicates a healthy industry. The average printed book sells about 3,000 copies, while bestsellers like Where the Crawdad Sings sell over 1 million copies. Nevertheless, a book is considered a good seller if it sells over 15,000 copies. Bookbinding, to keep producing these books, is not going anywhere. If you liked our video, be sure to click like and subscribe for more HowExpert Top 10 videos from all topics from A to Z in the future. Also, let us know what other topics you want us to do a HowExpert video in the future in the comments below. Thank you, have an amazing day, and take care. HowExpert publishes quick how-to guides on all topics from A to Z by everyday experts. Visit howexpert.com to learn more.